suspected that she probably, like the Lord Lieutenant, was very interested and anxious to meet her, and she was. And interestingly enough, Elizabeth moved her court very quietly from Westminster or Windsor down to Greenwich Castle, which she needn't do, but she did that to accommodate Gráinne Mhaol, because she wouldn't have to come very deep into the estuary, the Thames estuary. And as you know, the big observatory is there. So it was a very important point. It was kind of where deep water came as far as Greenwich, and then you could go up the river, but it started getting a little tighter up there. But Greenwich was kind of where all the ships kind of could sail in and anchor off of Greenwich. So it was a very important point for the British, as you know, for navigation points and for navigation. Anyway, so she arrives at the Royal Court in Greenwich, and some wonderful stories told about that. Has any of you ever heard any of these stories? Is this all new to you? Anybody at all? No? Okay. A little bit, yeah. Okay, well, other than the fact that I already told you that they spoke in Latin, she spoke English quite well. She spoke Spanish fluently, probably French, but because of sensibilities, England was at war with just about everybody, so they didn't want to speak either French or Spanish, because remember, Elizabeth almost married a Spaniard, and so on. So they would have had no problem, and they could certainly have spoken English. They say that she didn't speak English. She certainly did speak English, because the Normans spoke French. So not Tibbin Lung, but Richard Neilson would have spoken French. Anyway, and as a trader, going wherever she went, she spoke all those languages, undoubtedly. But the neutral language and the language of the educated class was Latin. So they conversed in Latin, and apparently Elizabeth was very besotted with her. The stories that have come down are probably apocryphal at best, because they don't quite fit what you sort of know about Gráinne Mhaol. She would not have gone in there swaggering and confrontationally. She wouldn't have done that. She would have gone in there very, very gracefully, very proud, certainly not subservient. And the stories of her not bowing and not scraping or kneeling or any of those things to the Queen are probably absolutely true. But then the Queen wouldn't have required them anyway, because she was not going there as a subject, even though technically she was, because Bingham had pretty well captured Connacht, and most Ireland was nominally under the British at that time. Even though this was pre 1603, pre Battle of Kinsale. But nevertheless, the stories about her sneezing and one of the maids giving her a silk handkerchief and her wiping her nose with it and then throwing it in the fire, and then everybody being shocked, and she says, "Well, I don't know about you, but when we wipe our nose on something in Ireland, we throw it away. We don't use that stuff again." So anyway, that's one of the stories that has come down, which probably isn't true. It wouldn't be the sort of thing that she would do, because that would be insensitive or insulting. You can be darn sure she did not insult Elizabeth either, no more than she would have subjected herself to her. The other thing probably is true, one of the great stories, is that Elizabeth offered to make her a princess and give her a high title of princess. And Gráinne very graciously replied, "Well, thank you, that's very nice," and so on. But I couldn't accept that because I'm already a queen. And that could very well have been the case. And but the reason she wouldn't accept princess is because she wouldn't accept any English titles, period, because that would have baggage going with it, that you were in some way acknowledging her as your sovereign. So they would have had that kind of banter backwards and forwards, and I've no doubt that was just between two women who understood each other, and but maybe the listeners, did you hear what she just said? Would have told the story later and it might sound a little differently. But that's the sort of thing that I can see happening between those two very, very powerful women. But she certainly operated under a safe conduct from Elizabeth. There's no question about that. I mean, probably everybody in Greenwich would have loved to kill her. There's probably not a seaman or a captain or anyone who wouldn't want to kill that woman on the spot. But they wouldn't dare do that because Elizabeth did not want that, and she was the sovereign. But the result was that she did achieve two things. She achieved, while she never submitted to the Queen, strangely enough, she did get the Queen to confirm her son, Tibin na Lung, the guy that was born in the boat, as the MacWilliam Uachtar was it's called. It was an old Norman title which had been taken by the Normans, but it was an old Gaelic title before that. You know how the Norman pretty well merged in, and they just Normanized the old English chieftainships. And the chieftainship of Mayo was known as MacWilliam Uachtar. MacWilliam the Higher. Uachtar is the Higher. And that was the premier title in the west of Ireland. And it was held traditionally by the de Burca family, the Burkes, who were the dominant Norman family in the west of Ireland. And because her son Thibaud or Theobald na Lung was in fact a Burke, having been the son of Richard and Earn, the Richard de Burca, although he was known as Richard MacWilliam, the MacWilliam. But what Bingham had done was he had wiped out the title, and he had declared himself president of Connaught, and all titles were dispensed with. There was no titles. All those titles were eliminated, and they granted new titles. So for Elizabeth to override Bingham and to send her back with duly certain, because you can be sure, well, I think that has survived, but you can certainly be sure that Gráinne was a businesswoman, and she got it in writing and dated and signed. So she got her son confirmed as the MacWilliam Uachtar, the old Norman Gaelic title, which has survived down to this day, and it is one of the oldest titles that has not gone, and that is the Westport House, and they're very proud of it. They're extremely proud of it. So they're kind of a hybrid family, if you like. They've come down from the old Ual chieftainship of her father and the MacWilliam old English Norman, So they're a very interesting family, and they still are an extraordinarily proud Irish family. If you were to talk to them and talk to Lord Sligo, is his current name, and he jokes about the fact that in 1800 we talked about when the Act of Union, they, in order to vote to end the Irish Parliament, they gave them all kinds of titles. And I remember on Irish television him being asked, he still called themselves O'Malley, by the way, why Sligo? And he says, well, everything else was gone. He says, Lord Galway was gone, Lord Mayo was gone. He says, so we just took Lord Sligo. And everybody laughed. And he said, that's what happened. And that was an additional title to what they already had from the old MacWilliam title. But anyway, for those of you who ever want to get into not royal, but aristocratic families and titles and the history, all of those houses are fascinating, both in England and Ireland, and it really is one of the more interesting things to study in history, how these names and how these people survive. Diane Spencer, Lady Diane, came from one of the most aristocratic and in many ways royal families in all of England, and she was infinitely more royal than Charles or any of the so-called royal family. Her pedigree was really top-notch in the British aristocratic system. Whereas, of course, the Windsors are Battenbergs, and it was Churchill who, during the First World War, said, well, I don't know that we should really you should have this German Battenberg name. And they says, well, what do you suggest, Mr. Churchill? He says, well, Windsor Castle has a nice ring to it. Why don't you call yourselves the House of Windsor? So